This What If is on What If Naruto was banished and became the Akatsuki leader Part 1. The like goal for this video is 36 likes. If you enjoyed this What If, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to this channel. Disclaimer, I don't own Naruto nor this fanfic. What? The horrified shriek of a single Tsunade echoed throughout Konoha. It was the only sound that could be heard. Everything else was as quiet as death. No birds even dared to chirp. Inside of a building, a 16-year-old blonde ninja was standing before Konoha's council of elders with a look of pure disbelief on his face. Shock was visible in the depths of his impossibly blue eyes. He started to shake his head defiantly. No, a broken bar. No, this can't be true. You can't do this. You're lying. The impassive elders seated before him looked on with uncaring eyes. They felt no regret for what was happening. This child was an abomination, and shouldn't even be allowed to live. They would have done this earlier, had they been given the chance. A dark-haired man with white eyes that seemed to hold a tinge of victory sneered, "Naruto Uzumaki, the council has reached a decision and you shall abide by it regardless of your personal feelings. You have failed to retrieve Sakura from Orochimaru, and therefore you have failed the village. Demon child, you are hereby banished from the Hidden Leaf." Naruto dropped to his knees, and tears filled his cerulean eyes. "These a broken bar. This can't be. Bachan wouldn't allow this. Why is this happening? It's a broken bar. It's not fair." But, apparently the man was not done. "You are to leave immediately. If you have not left the vicinity of Konoha within 1 hour, you shall be executed on sight. Oh, and we also must take back that headband, as it is property of the village." When Naruto didn't move, he motioned for one of the Anbu present to approach the boy. The Anbu appeared in front of him, and in one swift motion, pulled the headband off of Naruto's forehead. It was in that moment that something snapped inside of the blonde. The thing that he treasured most, his village, was being taken from him. And with the village, went his friends. All of his precious people would be gone. He was alone. He was empty. It was just like when he was younger. He was the demon child and no one cared about him. Naruto got up, silently, and took a step towards the head council member. His bangs hid his eyes from view and immersed them in shadow. Hayashi Hyuga, sensing a change in the atmosphere, looked towards the banished boy. And then, something unexpected happened. Something none of the elders could have predicted. This boy, after all, had loved the village, no matter what they threw at him. No matter how badly they treated him. They didn't expect it to change even now. Unfortunately for them, it did. Naruto suddenly looked up at the Hyuga clan head, meeting his gaze with a fierce glare. The normally indifferent man gasped. He was no longer looking into the eyes of Naruto Uzumaki. He was now looking at the cruel, blood-red eyes of a demon. Intakes of breath could be heard all around the room. The boy's pupils were slitted, and only anger was visible within his eyes. The boy's face began to take on a more feral appearance, as his canines sharpened and the strange whisker-like marks on his cheeks darkened. An evil aura began to overtake the room. And then he spoke. "You have just made a horrible mistake." The council could hardly believe that such a demonic voice could come from the blonde that stood in front of them. A few elders shook in their seats from the sheer power of the killing intent. The voice echoed around the room, like a scene right out of a horror movie. "I will make you bastards regret this day. I will make you regret the moment you decided to banish me from this village. I hope you realize what you've just done. You have made a powerful enemy. By banishing me, you have sealed the fate of yourselves and your village." Naruto shook with fury, and hatred was visible in his red eyes. He spat on the ground, and then growled. A wave of flames originated from where he stood, spreading out and licking everything around it like a wildfire. And then he was gone. That day changed Naruto Uzumaki forever. It was an hour later, and a pink-haired Kunoichi could be seen running through Konoha. Her face was red from exertion as she raced to the village gates. She wore a red dress with black knee-length shorts under it. "Lady Tsunade! Lady Tsunade!" she cried. A blonde woman who looked to be in her early 20s greeted the girl with a wave. At first that looked like a normal greeting, but the woman's sharp eyes picked up on an undercurrent of panic from the girl. "What's wrong, Sakura-chan?" she asked, concern visible in her hazel-colored eyes. "It takes a lot to get Sakura worked up like this. It's Naruto-kun. I can't find him anywhere. Ever since we got back from our last attempt to rescue Sasuke, he's been missing. Some injured shinobi came to the hospital this morning from a mission, and I was healing them all day so I didn't notice sooner." Sakura babbled on, another sigh of her worry. "Naruto-kun?" Tsunade said, "I'm sure he's fine. If anyone can take care of themselves, it's that boy." However, Sakura didn't look quite satisfied. "I mean, we're a team of broken barre and we're friends and I should know where he is, right? What if he's in danger or half dead from training so hard? That's what he usually does when we come back from a failed mission. He hasn't even fully healed from that battle with Sasuke." The Godame frowned at the mention of that traitor. He had once been part of Naruto and Sakura's Jinin team, and they had been close friends. But he had betrayed the village and gone to Orochimaru for training. She hated to think of how much that had hurt Naruto. "Sakura, I just got back from Suna, so I have a lot of work to do. However, I'll see what I can do, maybe ask around. I hope that corrupted council hasn't tried to pull anything a broken bar." Sakura nodded. "Thank you, Tsunade-sama. Come on, why don't you accompany me to my office? That way I don't need to send anyone to go find you if I stumble across that baka." They set off towards the center of Konoha, where the Hokage's residence was located. Tsunade opened the door to her office, only to find Hayashi Hyuga, the head of the Council of Elders, waiting for her. Her detail-oriented senses noticed a gleam of satisfaction in his eye, as if he had accomplished something award-worthy. However, being probably the best medic nin alive, the Godame picked up small things like his breathing, posture, and increased heart rate. This revealed an undercurrent of broken bar fear. "Hello, Hokage-sama. I see that you are back from your meeting in Suna." Hayashi's wide eyes rose up to meet hers. Sakura looked at the man, feeling like he was hiding something. Tsunade's gaze hardened into a glare. "What is this about, Hayashi-san? If you are trying to pull one of your evil schemes, then I can assure you that whatever you threaten me with will have absolutely no effect." Sakura glared at the man with her emerald eyes, silently agreeing with her sensei. "I only wish to speak with you, that's all," and then he looked over at the pink-haired Konoichi, and added alone. Frustrated, Tsunade hissed, "Whatever you are going to say can be said in front of my apprentice. Spit it out, Hyuga." She really did not like this man. "As you wish. I merely wanted to inform you that I have taken care of a great problem in our village. Children, adults, shinobi and civilians alike are much safer now that a certain broken bar dangerous person is out of the way. He was simply a time bomb waiting to explode." Tsunade paled. "No, a broken bar? He doesn't mean a broken bar. How dare you?" She snarled as comprehension dawned on her face. "What have you done?" Sakura was shocked by the Hokage's sudden outburst. She was clueless. What did the Hyuga mean by that? "This was a long time in the making, Tsunade-sama," Hayashi said, his voice dripping with sarcasm as he added the suffix. "Everyone will thank me for getting rid of that." His voice was cut off by a hand at his throat. The Hyuga clan leader found himself pressed up against the wall, struggling for breath. However, it was not Tsunade's famous temper that had flared up. Sakura beat her to it. "What did you do?" Sakura hissed, her voice as cold as death. Tsunade stood next to her, shaking with rage. Hayashi suddenly reconsidered coming here, but it was too late now. The council banished that demon brat. We'll never see his face again. Naruto Uzumaki is finally out of this village and out of our lives, Hayashi sneered. Suddenly, the world seemed to freeze. A deadly silence descended upon the room. For all they knew, it could have been the world. And then, a broken bar, what are you screamed a very upset Hyuga as he was thrown through a wall. Someone down below on the street screamed at the sight of the dignified Hyuga flying over their head. A crowd gathered below as a very pissed off Hokage flew out of the hole behind him, her eyes glued to the doomed clan head with murder as their intent. Not a second later, a pink blur raced up and punched the Hyuga in the face with enough force to bring down a building. Shrieks of "You bastard!" from Sakura and "What the hell were you thinking?" from Tsunade could be heard as they pummeled the helpless man. Kakashi heard the screaming and ran to the source of the noise. Is the Hokage under attack? He thought. A huge wave of killing intent washed over him. He sprinted faster, now flanked with roughly a dozen Anbu. What is going on? Didn't Tsunade-sama just get back from a meeting in Suna? And then he saw it. Kakashi stopped dead in his tracks. HOLYS.H. His words were cut off by more enraged screams. His eyes were met with the sight of the Godame Hokage and Sakura Haruno beating the crap out of the Hyuga clan head in the sky. He winced as a chakra-fueled fist slammed into Hayashi Hyuga's gut. Apparently the clan leader really wasn't that great of a fighter as everyone thought. What could he possibly have done for Tsunade-sama to risk her status as Hokage and publicly fight him? And not only her, but Sakura too. Kakashi knew he had to stop this. He and the Anbu launched themselves into the air. It took 7 Anbu to restrain Tsunade for the few moments they needed. One formed a hand sign, and they all disappeared. 4 more Anbu went to Sakura and did the same, vanishing in a cloud of smoke. Kakashi leapt towards Hayashi, placed a hand on the man's shoulder, and disappeared as well. The onlookers blinked, wondered what had happened, shrugged, and then walked off and resumed their daily business. Obviously, they had a very simple thought process. Tsunade, Sakura, Kakashi, Hayashi, and multiple Anbu were now in a large interrogation cell deep within the Anbu headquarters. Tsunade was still screeching like a madwoman and Sakura looked like she was ready to murder someone. Hayashi refused to be looked down upon and held his head high, despite the circumstances. Tsunade's voice, which suddenly turned eerily calm, broke the awkward silence. With my power as the Hokage, I vote for the execution of Hayashi Hyuga immediately. Her voice cut through the air like a dagger. Kakashi's one visible eye widened. Some of the Anbu looked shocked as well, except for a few that looked down at the floor guiltily. What could he have possibly done to deserve that, Lady Tsunade? Kakashi didn't think he had ever seen the Godame this livid before, even when Jiraiya had been caught peeping, and that was saying something. He manipulated the council into thinking that I had given them an order. He went behind my back, and performed actions without my consent, and he broken bar. Tsunade's voice broke at the end. Kakashi stared in disbelief as tears formed into the legendary Sanin's eyes. Sakura finished for her. Kakashi-sensei, he banished Naruto-kun. They banished him for not bringing back Sasuke, and he thought it was an order from the Hokage. He left this morning. Kakashi a broken bar. Naruto-kun's gone. This time it was Kakashi who had to be restrained. And just like that, a misunderstanding caused all hell to break loose. But no one would know that for a while. They didn't know what they'd done to him. They didn't know just how hard he would take it, how it would create a hole in his heart that couldn't be healed. What a mistake that was. And the worst part is that they have no idea how far he'll go. And soon, they wouldn't know what hit them. Naruto's hair blew around him, wild and unruly since there was nothing on his forehead to hold it back. His eyes, instead of being dulled with pain, were strangely sharp and intense, almost icy. His hand balled into fists, and his eyes flashed. And then, He took a step towards the Akatsuki base. A step towards destiny. Small blades of grass quivered in the gentle breeze. Trees stood tall and strong with the occasional leaf spiraling down to the soft ground below. It seemed to be a day just like any other day, but apparently someone had other plans. A small stream ran through the lush undergrowth, a stream that would soon run red with blood. 10 figures stood on the horizon, observing the village that would soon be nothing more than a massive graveyard. Their cloaks, black with red clouds, blew about them in the wind. The silence had an eerie feel to it, as if the whole forest was holding its breath. Suddenly, all 10 figures vanished, completely disappearing all at once. The slaughter had begun. Moments later, the screaming started. Shrieks of pain and horror filled the air, along with the scent of blood. Many shinobi had already been killed, their bodies mangled and virtually unrecognizable. The simple music note design on the dead villagers' headbands glistened in the deceitfully cheerful sunlight. The screaming abruptly stopped, just as suddenly as it had begun. Shortly after, the 10 cloaked figures could be seen again on the horizon. They walked away, seemingly unharmed. And then, just like that, they were gone. Konoha was bustling with activity. Everyone, civilians and shinobi alike, had gotten word of something very troubling. Shizune was busy sprinting through the streets, intent on the Hokage's mansion. She burst into the Godame's office, face flushed after running all the way across the village. "Tsunade same!" she cried. Tsunade looked up with slight interest, although her eyes were still dulled from pain of losing a precious person. "What, Shizune?" she asked in a tired voice. The past 5 years had been hard on her. Although her appearance was still one of a woman in her 20s, she now acted much older. Tsunade was often tired, drunk, or just plain annoyed. Shizune made a point to ignore her bored tone, and answered with all of her previous energy. "Tsunade-sama, the Hidden Sound Village, it's been completely destroyed." "What?" screeched Tsunade in disbelief. Shizune was mentally relieved at this normal reaction. Word just came from Jiraiya. He apparently had spies in the vicinity and just got wind of what happened. "The entire village has been decimated, there are no survivors." One of Jiraiya's men described the streets to have been flooded with blood, the brunette said, breathless. Tsunade's eyes were still wide from the news. The entire village? Was Orochimaru present as well? Was he killed? Shizune shook her head. "It is impossible to tell. Bodies are still being identified, although many were broken bar mangled beyond recognition," she shuddered. Tsunade nodded. It would have been nice for Konoha's longtime enemy, also her ex-teammate, to have been taken care of, though she didn't want to get her hopes up. Who could have done it? There must have been an army, right? After all, this is Orochimaru's village we're talking about. They have tons of military strength, the Godame thought out loud. Shizune looked nervous. Under her Hokage's questioning gaze, she answered quietly, "A number." "What do you mean no? There was no army." "Wow. There must have been some seriously skilled shinobi to take down the Hidden Sound Village without anyone knowing. I mean seriously, they killed off every single Jonin, Chunin, Jounin, and all other ninja without the power of an army. How is that even possible?" Tsunade muttered. Broken bar. Talk a broken bar." Shizune started. She was obviously on edge. "Did you say something?" "It was the Akatsuki," Shizune finished quietly. Tsunade's eyes widened. How could this be? She had no idea the Akatsuki had gotten so strong. Lately, they had been more evasive than usual, and hadn't truly been seen for years, but this much power? Was it even possible? She was about to question Shizune further when the door to her office flew open. A familiar pink-haired kunoichi rushed into the room. She stared at them, her emerald eyes wide. Sakura really hadn't changed much in the past 5 years. She didn't have a family of her own, and ever since Naruto left she was never the same.
On her face, true smiles were hard to come by, and were to be cherished whenever they graced her features. Her bubblegum pink hair was still cut short, though in a more flattering way that had more layers in the front and side bangs that framed her face on the right side. Sakura was also probably an inch or two taller, which Tsunade noticed as she stood there in the doorway. And, of course, she had advanced in rank, and was now one of the few who were ranked as elite jounin. Tsunade absently mumbled something about people not bothering to knock when she was cut off by the new arrival. Tsunade-sama. Is it true? Did someone somehow manage to destroy Orochimaru's village? Sakura cried, unsure about the rumor that was flying around Konoha. Yes, Sakura. It's true. Jiryu's spy network found out about the event just this morning, the Hokage answered, still a bit shaken. She rubbed her brow, trying to ease the headache that was slowly forming. Who? Was all Sakura could say after a few minutes of shocked silence. Akatsuki. That one word sent a chill through all three women. Even though they hadn't had any contact with the elusive organization, it was obvious that they were gaining power. But how? They stayed in the Hokage's office for another 15 minutes, discussing what Konoha should do. It was decided that since the hidden sound was an enemy, they would find out as much information as possible about the slaughter and also keep an eye out for Orochimaru. That man had a habit of coming out alive of almost anything, given his dream of immortality, though this time all of Konoha wanted to make sure he really was dead. Tsunade had also given Sakura orders to select 2 other elite jounin and act as team leader for an S-rank mission. Her squad was to travel to the source of the matter, the Hidden Sound Village. Their mission was to find out what exactly happened there and who did it. They had 2 weeks. Somewhere, deep within a mountain, plans were being made. The Akatsuki were extremely pleased with the success of their latest mission, and were now beginning the second phase of their plan. A couple people were gathered in a room, talking quietly among themselves in low voices. There was a jutsu active that prevented anyone on the outside from eavesdropping, but the matter was of such importance that they still talked quietly out of habit. A fish-like man with blue skin and gills on his face was speaking to a girly man with long blonde hair. Deidara, how much longer until Leader Sama gets here? The blue man asked impatiently. The other man, Deidara, simply shrugged. How am I supposed to know? We need to begin capturing the rest of the Bajuu. Everything is going ahead of schedule, so we'll need to capture more Jinchuriki, and that's something that takes time. The blue man, Kisame, complained, eager to get to work. Kisame, I'm sure Leader Sama already has a flawless strategy to capture them. Your impatience is degrading, said the emotionless voice of a raven-haired man with spinning red eyes. Yay, whatever Ichi, Kisame groaned. Boom. Deidara and Kisame whipped around at the sudden sound. Ichi just turned slowly. The doors to the meeting room had been thrust open dramatically, and smashed into the wall. One day, he is going to break through a broken bar, thought the Akaya. Standing at the door, with his hair blowing wildly around his face, stood a man. He wore a black cloak that moved with him like a shadow. The dark color perfectly offset the blood-red clouds that decorated it. The cloak was exactly like every other Akatsuki member's, except for the red kanji for fox on the back. He was obviously a shinobi, although he wore no headband. His hair was a light blonde that had been unruly and wild ever since anyone could remember, and his lean body was accentuated with strong muscles. When he lifted his head, the man's intimidating blue eyes became visible and glittered maliciously as he stepped into the room. Seeing the 3 of them gathered there, he slowly began to grin. The grin was full of eagerness and anticipation, and was very familiar to the people standing in the room. The motion enhanced the 3 dark whisker-like marks that were etched into each side of the man's face. Deidara, Kisame, and Ichi bowed slightly with respect as he entered the room. Leader Sama, they acknowledged. 3 blurs leapt through the treetops of a forest far from their home. They were powerful ninja, judging from the great mass of chakra they each possessed. Each wore a headband adorned with the symbol of the hidden leaf. "Sakura, how far do we need to go from here?" asked a brunette shinobi with stoic white eyes. The pink-haired ninja looked up. "Nejai, it looks like we'll be in for another 10 minutes of travel. We should be there shortly." "It's about time," muttered the third jounin, wiping the sweat off of his forehead before taking off again. Red fangs were tattooed on either side of his face, and messy brown hair framed his face. A large white dog followed closely behind him, his sturdy legs rippling with muscles as he caught up to his owner. "Ah, Kabana Broken Bar, you remind me so much of how he used to act on missions," Sakura thought to herself. She missed her first teammates very dearly, although the blonde's departure hit her the hardest. Sakura desperately tried to avoid those painful memories. He was someone she never expected to lose a broken bar. It was roughly 10 minutes later when the team of 3 elite jounin reached the hidden sound village. The silence was deafening and weighed heavily on their ears. Kiba shuddered as the scent of blood reeked through his nose. He reassured the huge white dog beside him with a pat on the head. Akamaru whimpered nervously. Kiba was about to say something about the smell when he looked ahead and froze. Seeing his hesitation, Sakura and Nejaya ran to catch up with their teammate. He had reached the entrance to the village and was standing just above the main gates, feet glued to them with chakra. "Kiba, what's a broken bar-o?" Sakura cut herself off with a gasp as she surveyed the scene before her. Nejaya's pale eyes widened, for once a clear display of emotion on his usually indifferent face. Akamaru let out a mournful howl that could be heard for miles around. Before them lay a scene of pure horror. Blood ran through the streets like runoff after a heavy rain. The thick red liquid covered most surfaces. And, much to the team's horror, bodies paved the roads. Dead men, women, and children lay in the midst of it all. Death was everywhere. What could have happened here? Could the Akatsuki really have done all this with just 10 people? Sakura was in shock. "I don't see how it is possible, especially with a village of this caliber." Broken Bar Nejaya looked away from the slaughtered village before him. Kiba just stood, rooted to the spot, as his eyes took in everything. He suppressed a shudder as the wind blew and another wave of the foul stench of death washed over him. "These Broken Bar, this is horrible. Even if this is Orochimaru's village, I don't know if I would have wished this fate upon them. After all, there are innocent people down there who now lay in pools of their own blood." Just then, a figure clad in black shinobi clothes appeared before them. He nodded a quick greeting at the team before speaking. "I am a spy of Jiraiya's. As much as I would like to give you my real name, I cannot, for it is far too dangerous. Please call me Itsuki. I hope that will suffice. You are the team from Konoha, right?" Sakura, Nejai, and Kiba nodded. They looked at the shinobi before them. His black clothes were loose and disguised his body, and he wore no village headband. He had unusual blue hair which was mostly covered in a hood, but other than that there were no distinguishable features visible. Parts of his unique hair stuck out to frame his face. Itsuki's whole face was also covered in shadow. The Konohans couldn't even see his eyes. After nodding, Kiba quickly averted his eyes to avoid the horrible scene that lay behind the new arrival. Itsuki smiled grimly. "Well, in that case, I have some bad news for you. You will probably want to deliver this information to the Godame Hokage immediately." Kiba's head snapped up. "News? You mean other than a whole village slaughtered by the most feared organization in the world?" His voice was harsh, which surprised Sakura. He never used to speak like that. He was always joking around and goofing off. I guess his banishment affected Kiba more than anyone knew. "Yes, I'm afraid so. We have gathered evidence from all over, and things are beginning to fall into place, things that we would have rather not have happen. You see, Konoha, the Akatsuki have already captured 4 out of the 9 Bajuu. Their plan of world domination is already in motion. The three Jounin stared at him in horror. After the initial surprise and thoughts of how this could affect Konoha, they were all filled with dread. A single thought ran through all of their minds: Naruto. Deep within the Akatsuki base, a man prepared to sneeze, but the urge quickly subsided. Wind whistled through an empty village. A village that used to be teeming with life, but was now only a ghost town. The wind blew everywhere, touching every surface as it passed by. A Shinobi's brown hair blew around his face as if it were attacking him. He narrowed his eyes, and wrinkled his nose against the sickening stench of death the wind carried. What reason could Akatsuki possibly have for slaughtering an entire village like this? Kiba thought. Kiba, Sakura, and Neji, along with Jiryu's spy Akatsuki, had been investigating the Hidden Sound village for the past 3 hours. They had grouped themselves into pairs so that they could cover more ground, Kiba with Sakura and Neji with Akatsuki. After hearing Akatsuki's troubling news, Sakura had wanted to report back to Konoha immediately, but Neji simply shook his head and told her that since they were going to cut their mission short anyway, they might as well bring back some details about the village so that Tsunade wouldn't have to send out another team. Kiba, surprisingly, hadn't said anything, and Sakura thought she caught a troubled look flash through his eyes. Right now, Neji and Akatsuki were exploring a section of the town where the foul stench of burned flesh filled the air. All of the bodies around the two had been burned horribly beyond recognition. All that was left of the villagers were piles of charred corpses. Ashes blew about them in the wind. It didn't take a genius to figure out that some kind of massive fire jutsu had been used. Quickly making a note of this, Neji wasted no time in following the blue-haired shinobi to another section of the Hidden Sound village. The first part of the village that Sakura and Kiba searched was a broken bar, disturbing to say the least. It was unnerving because all of the people looked to have attacked each other, like crazed animals fighting to the death. Their corpses had looks that humans shouldn't have been able to have on their face, while they reached out to strangle their neighbors. Even frozen in death, the horror that had gone on in this area was apparent. Sakura walked over to one of the dead and observed how its arms were painfully contorted as if it had been resisting its own body. This must have been one powerful jutsu? She shuddered, and then moved on. Another section of the town was strangely free of blood. The lack of blood in that particular area was surprising, but when Neji saw the villagers, he was shocked. Next to him, Itsuki's hands clenched into fists. Everyone looked to have just dropped dead. No battle, no fighting, nothing. As if everyone just passed out at the same time and never got up. Civilians and shinobi alike lay on the ground, and could have looked like they were just taking a nap except for the way that they were unnaturally sprawled out. Byakugan. Neji said. The veins around his eyes became more prominent as he activated his Kekkai Genkai. He wanted to know how these people died. Even with his family's bloodline trait, he had trouble finding anything unusual. After a few minutes of searching, however, the only thing that stood out to him was the way that all of the bodies had a dark, palm-shaped mark over their hearts. He furrowed his brow in confusion. How did that kill all of those people? Wouldn't they have noticed someone using taijutsu on everyone? And then it hit him. This handprint was not something left by a physical touch. It was a chakra burn. Such an advanced jutsu? The enemy must have had amazing chakra control to have used a ninjutsu that caused all of these people to drop dead like that. The mark is the only thing that's left. After investigating most of the Hidden Sound village, the two teams met up at the last section. Sakura couldn't help it, she gasped. Oh my god, Kiba managed to say in a low voice. Itsuki just looked at the scene with a look of pure disgust on his face. The enemy must have been very broken bar bloodthirsty, was all Neji could say. The other three tried to nod in agreement, but couldn't quite manage it. Before them was by far the bloodiest scene yet. Bodies were strewn all over, their throats ripped out and chests clawed apart. Large claw marks adorned the nearby buildings. What could have done this? Kiba thought. It looks like some kind of wild animal," Sakura stuttered. To be honest, it looked like a pack of demons had descended into the village and shredded every living thing in sight. But the ninjas knew better. It had been only one Akatsuki member. A shiver went through all of the Konohans as they thought about meeting that particular shinobi in battle. White, frothy water rushed off of a cliff somewhere in waterfall country. The roaring of the waterfall blocked out most other sounds, making it an ideal meeting place for shinobi. There was a small cave hidden behind the roaring water, unknown to most people. The two shinobi standing in the cave would not have been noticed by any passers-bys. Kisame and Ichi were currently waiting for the rest of their orders. They had been told by their leader to meet at this place at midday, and so they had. Both disguised their chakra signatures. A footstep behind them made both S-class nins flinch involuntarily. Kisame whirled around only to find their blonde leader leaning casually against the cave wall. Kisame had no idea how he had gotten by them, a mystery that remains to be solved. Ichi's eye twitched, for he was obviously annoyed at allowing himself to be snuck up on. The Akatsuki leader grinned fairly, an amused light dancing in his eyes. "I see you've made it," he said softly. Ichi and Kisame nodded. "What's the plan?" Kisame asked. The grin became wider. Ichi started to get an uneasy feeling most missing nins of this caliber weren't quite so broken bar happy. "You are going to infiltrate the hidden waterfall village under the guise of travelers who simply wish to experience the sights and sounds of the village. By using a henge, no one will be able to recognize you. After all, this particular village isn't exactly known for its military strength. All the same, we don't want to encourage any violence." He gave a pointed look to Kisame, who was known to cause unnecessary fights. "Once you have successfully entered the village, you are to find a Jinchuriki by the name of Fu. The seven-tailed horn beetle is sealed inside of her. Capture her and bring her back to headquarters for safekeeping until the time comes for you know what. Oh, and don't reveal yourselves unless absolutely necessary," he finished. He handed Ichi a paper with a drawing of a woman with pale green hair and red insect-like eyes. "That's her." Taking all of this in, Kisame nodded. Before doing the same, Ichi asked, "And you, Naruto-sama? You haven't been out of the base for years. What are you going to do?" It might have been his eyes playing tricks on him, but Ichi could have sworn he saw a flash of uneasiness on Naruto's face, but the shadows were probably playing tricks on him. And it was gone so quickly he wasn't sure if he had really seen anything at all. "Me?" Naruto chuckled, "I'm going to start the first phase of our other plan." Kisame looked confused. "What plan is that?" Naruto looked him in the eyes. "To infiltrate and ultimately destroy Konoha." Kisame heard a hint of revenge in those words, and grinned in reaction to his own bloodlust. This was going to be good. Ichi couldn't help but smirk at his partner's reaction. Konoha probably knows by now that we're going after the tailed beasts even more than before. Even if they hate me, it is now in their best interest to protect all of the Jinchuriki. And, as you know, that includes me. So, I'm going to give them exactly what they want. So you think they're going to come looking for you?" Ichi asked, speaking up quietly. "Yes, I know they will." Kisame frowned. "But how can you be so sure?" Naruto ran a hand through his hair. "I don't think everyone in that village wanted me gone. My old teammate, Sakura, would probably jump at the chance to find me again. If only to beat some sense into me for not bringing back Sasuke. Anyways, I'm pretty sure they'd rather have me back in the village than have the entire world to come to an end. Which is silly, they have no idea what Akatsuki's plans for the Bajuu actually are. Konoha really hates this whole organization, so they'll come after me and bring me back to the village for protection to prevent you from getting a hold of me." All three of them were grinning now. Ichi chuckled, if only they knew. After listening to all of their leaders' new plan, Ichi and Kisame were fairly surprised at how well thought out it was. Naruto was going to hide his connection to the Akatsuki, and dress as a normal shinobi would. Then, he would purposefully allow Konoha nins to find him, act like he was all happy that they wanted him back, and accept their apologies etc. Or well, something along those lines. Ichi had a sneaking suspicion that it wouldn't go quite that well, and that Naruto's old anger at the village would bring out his sadistic side. So he'd probably try to secretly hurt them in the process. Regardless of that, however, their plans always seemed to work out. Then, when the time was right, he would steal Konoha's secret scrolls and any information that could possibly be of use to Akatsuki. And of course, for good measure, he would scare the shit out of them by faking being kidnapped by Akatsuki. Either that, or he would reveal his true identity. Unless something better came to mind, he'd choose whichever was more amusing to him. After all, who wouldn't want to see their faces? Neji, Sakura, and Kiba had left the Hidden Sound Village, said goodbye to Itsuki, and started the return trip to Konoha. They had been traveling non-stop for the past couple hours, eager to get as far away from the massacre as possible. Right now, they were only a few minutes away from the Hidden Leaf. Each member of the team was deep in thought, thinking in completely different directions. The Akatsuki a broken bar. What could they gain from massacring Orochimaru's village? Neji thought, what's in it for them? He ran a hand through his dark hair as he continued to ponder the different aspects of the attack. That guy Itsuki, right? What village is he from? He is one of Jiryu's spies, but I don't recognize him at all. I wonder what kind of jutsus he uses or broken bar. Kiba trailed off in thought. Akamaru was right beside him, easily keeping pace with the Jounin. As Kiba's faithful nin dog, Akamaru would rarely leave his master's side. Sakura's thoughts, however, were drawn to her old teammate. Naruto, please be safe. Somehow, I'm going to convince Lady Tsunade to let me to find you, and bring you back to Konoha. I will not let this become anything like Sasuke's defection. We will bring you back, Naruto. Just hold out a little longer, we'll find you. The Konoha nins had made it back to their village in record timing. After giving the guards a quick greeting, they ran to the Hokage's office, eager to deliver the new information as soon as possible. The good dame was considering pouring herself a glass of sake when the door to her office burst open. Startled, she looked up to see Sakura Haruno, Neji Hyuga, and Kiba and Yuzuka standing before her, panting. Confused, the good dame just stared at them. They weren't supposed to be back for at least another week. Tsunade was about to speak when Sakura abruptly cut her off. Tsunade-sama, we received important information that had to be delivered immediately. We did some brief research at the Hidden Sound Village as well, but couldn't stay any longer since we had to report back immediately. Tsunade nodded, still a little confused. What could have gotten them so worked up? Well, spit it out. What's the news? This time it was Kiba who spoke. It's Akatsuki. Not only were they the ones who attacked Orochimaru's village, but they are now kicking their plan into overdrive. They've just recently captured 4-tailed beasts. Tsunade gasped. But a broken bar so soon. They're capturing the Bajuu so quickly now. Tsunade-sama, what should we do? Neji asked. He secretly cared very much for Naruto since he was the one that set him free of his fate, and actually wanted to bring him back to Konoha. Sakura and Kiba anxiously awaited her answer, silently thinking the same thing. Although no words had been exchanged, the three were so close that they could practically read each other's thoughts. Would they finally get to see Naruto? With a sigh, Tsunade spoke up. I can't find another way around this. Sakura, Neji, Kiba, it is now in the best interest of our village to find, retrieve, and protect Naruto Uzumaki. She choked out the last name. Yes. Sakura cheered, mentally doing a little victory dance. A small smile graced Neji's lips. Kiba grinned happily, and Akamaru bounded over to Tsunade. With a blink, the Godame registered a huge white dog flying at her, but it was too late. Akamaru tackled Tsunade, and furiously began licking her face. Sakura burst out laughing, and Kiba scratched the back of his head sheepishly. Shizune poked her head into the room, wondering what the heck was going on, only to find herself in a fit of laughter when she saw the huge dog attacking Tsunade. Wrestling out of Akamaru's grip and wiping her face, Tsunade playfully grabbed the white dog by the scruff and threw him across the room. With a yelp, Akamaru slammed into Kiba and they both went flying into the wall. Tsunade grinned. Shizune went over to pay Akamaru on the head, who instantly recovered. Kiba just lay on the floor in a jumbled heap. With a groan, he stood up, rubbing the side of his head. Neji smirked at the large Akamaru and Kiba-sized dent in the wall behind him. Suddenly, though, the happy atmosphere dissipated. Everyone looked towards Tsunade, who was now emitting a nervous aura. They were all baffled as tears started to form in her eyes. Weren't they just laughing and enjoying themselves? What is it, Tsunade-sama? Sakura asked, worried for her sensei's unusual behavior. It's just that. What makes you think that we could find him after all these years? Don't make the mistake of thinking that this will be my first attempt at finding him. I have sent out Anbu before. He's just so good at concealing his trail, and it's obvious that he doesn't want to be found. It was as if he just disappeared. She took a shaky breath and continued. And even if we somehow managed to find him, how could we possibly convince him to come back to Konoha? He still thinks that I gave the orders for his banishment, you know? And I've never found him, so I've never been able to tell him otherwise. By the end of her outburst, the Hokage was sobbing. Shizune was at her side, trying to comfort the grieving woman. The three Jounin just stared at her. None of them had even considered Naruto not wanting to come back with them. He was frozen in their minds as a happy, obnoxious kid who loved Konoha with all of his heart. But now they were beginning to realize that they may have been wrong. A lot of things can change in 5 years. Sakura placed a hand on Tsunade's shoulder. In a calm voice, she said, "Don't worry, sensei. We'll find Naruto. We'll talk with him, reason with him. And then, Tsunade-sama, we are going to bring him home." Tsunade stopped crying and Shizune gave the pink-haired Kunoichi a grateful look. It took a few minutes for Tsunade to put herself together, so everyone waited patiently. "Now, as I was saying," a broken bar Tsunade started, back in full Hokage mode now, "I will send 2 teams on a knee-ranked mission to bring back Naruto. It will be you 3 along with another team of Jounins for backup that I will personally select. Sakura, you were close to Naruto. Neji, your Byakugan will be an advantage. And Kiba, we need your tracking skills along with Akamaru. You will leave tomorrow at sunrise, and meet the other team at the main gate. Do not be late. Do you accept?" "Yes." The 3 chorused. Shizune smiled from her spot next to the Godame. The rookie 9 had really grown into fine ninjas. "Dismissed," Tsunade said, and Sakura, Neji, and Kiba all left her office after a quick bow. Once they were gone, the Godame turned her attention to Shizune. "So, who do you think I should send with them?" As Shizune went on and on about various Jounins and the pros, cons of having them on the team, Tsunade thought about what it would be like to see Naruto again. She missed his sparkling cerulean eyes, his constantly happy demeanor, and his in-your-face personality. He had wedged himself into her heart as one of her precious people, and she would do everything she could to protect him. "Naruto, please be alright. We're coming." After watching Ichi and Kisame leave their meeting spot, Naruto made a few hand signs and disappeared in a swirl of bright red flames. Back at the Akatsuki's hidden base, he hung up his unique cloak and changed into more common clothes. Naruto examined himself in a mirror.
He wore a fitted black t-shirt with the kanji for fox on the back in red, just like his Akatsuki cloak, and it highlighted his muscles nicely. He also wore common-looking plain black pants that were loose so they wouldn't hinder his movements. Typical shinobi sandals were on his feet, and he carried a kunai pouch that had decorative red threads lining the edges. Naruto rolled his eyes, imagining Konoha's reaction to him not wearing orange. It had been sort of a tradition there, him wearing orange. But now, ugh, how he despised that color. Well, I certainly don't look like I'm in Akatsuki, Naruto thought, which is a shame really. I'd love to see their faces when they found out I was not only part of Akatsuki, but the leader. Hell, I'd probably give them all a heart attack. If only they knew that their greatest enemy was of their own making. Haha, that's something I'd like to see. It's funny how banishment was actually the best thing for me. It's so much nicer working under my own rules than having that disgusting village holding me back. His face broke into that dangerous looking grin again, the one that always seemed to set people on edge. His impossibly blue eyes sparkled mischievously as he thought about how much fun this would be. Sure, he didn't want to go back to Konoha. He liked being governed by his own rules. But he would really enjoy killing the people that caused him so much pain. His grin widened, and the whisker-like marks on his face darkened. "Are you ready to get some revenge?" he asked, although the room was empty. "It's about time, Kit. I've been waiting so long for this." Demonic laughter filled the air. Naruto was pleased to have Kibai's support. To no one in particular, he announced, "Konoha, here I come." Thank you for watching.